Welcome to Bravo-Yah or Brav-o-no. Today's discussion is on Season 10, Episode 3 of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. We start off the episode with Dolores and her ex-husband Frank, and they're still living together. However, she still has her boyfriend, and all three seem to be getting along well. Later in the episode, she does have lunch with her father at an Italian restaurant, and they start talking about his health issues, and she is genuinely concerned about him and his health issues that he's had. She does talk about some of the things that he used to do in the past and kind of how he used to be growing up, and everything was fine for that conversation. However, it went a little south when he started talking to her about her relationships, and she told him that things are good for her now and she's really not wanting to change anything at this time. The show then jumps over to Melissa and Joe. There's a lot of them in this episode because it's primarily focusing on her upcoming 40th birthday party. He brings her breakfast in bed, and also there's a couple flowers, and they start talking about the upcoming party, and they're concerned about all the ladies getting along, and he really doesn't want there to be any fighting, and he's worried about his sister Teresa and all the stress that she's been under lately. And then Melissa tells Joe that Teresa's feuding with Margaret because Margaret called Danielle a prostitute, and Margaret felt like Teresa was taking Danielle's side over hers. Joe is definitely on Margaret's side and would like for Teresa to side with her and not with Danielle. There was 3 interesting facts during the conversation with Melissa and Joe, one being that I did not see Melissa eat one bit of her breakfast, but can't say the same about Joe. Also, the fact that Melissa is very supportive of Teresa and the whole cheating stories behind with Teresa, so she's very much on Teresa's side with that. And then the third being the later in the episode, Joe ends up pretty much accusing his sister Teresa of flirting with the pool contractor. This episode also focused on the fact that many of the ladies had previously participated in an obstacle course and they were feeling the effects of it afterwards. This was most evident when they had a scene with Margaret. She was laying in bed, which appeared to have on a pink bathrobe, and her husband was bringing her a cup of coffee. Well, I would assume it's coffee, but with the Housewives, one can never be really sure. But she was laying in bed telling him about the obstacle course and showed him and us her bruise. They also had a discussion about Marge Sr. and how she's going to need a new place to live, and that she was not going to be living with them, that neither one of them could handle her. And they later in the show did go look at some apartments, but it did not look like they had picked anything out, at least not during this episode. The show then takes us over to Teresa's house. She's in her kitchen with her dad and they're talking. She gets on the phone and she's talking to her husband Joe, who's still in jail, who's very upset and telling her that he's going to get deported. She's upset as well after the call, and her dad starts in about how Joe didn't listen to him, his advice that he'd given him in the past, and now it's pretty much his own fault. Teresa's brother Joe does show up at her house and they talk. He explains to her that he's worried about her and her spending habits and her decisions, and really wanting to make sure that everything goes smoothly for Melissa's birthday party. He knows Teresa's stressed out and he's worried that she's going to blow up at the party. Before the birthday party, Teresa's getting ready, getting her makeup on, and talking to her daughter, and she's explaining to her daughter about how Margaret's upset with her because of the situation with Danielle, and her daughter said that, she can see both sides, and eventually Teresa plans on making sure she talks to Margaret. And Jennifer ends up talking to her daughter too about her fight, or feuding, I should say, with Jackie, and ends up getting advice from her daughter that she should apologize as well. She ends up taking her daughter's advice, and at Melissa's birthday party, she ends up apologizing sincerely to Jackie, and Jackie accepts the apology, and they hug it out. Towards the latter part of the episode, we get to Melissa's birthday party, and her and Joe, they show up at the venue, which is decorated very, very nice. Food looks great. Everything looks perfect. and Melissa couldn't be happier. The guests of family and friends arrived and were greeted by Melissa and Joe. They had 2 celebrity guests. One was Buddy from Cake Boss and his wife, and then the other one was no other than Ramona herself from The Real Housewives of New York, who is an apparent friend of Melissa's. As mentioned earlier, Jennifer makes up with Jackie, and Teresa has a conversation with Margaret and smooths things over with her. Jennifer does have a conversation with some of the ladies that she would like to do her birthday, possibly with a girls' trip to Jamaica. This episode ends with all the ladies at the party, talking with each other, smiling and getting along. All the feuds apparently squashed. The recap for this episode really could be called the 4 F's, which that's not grading it. The F stand for food, fighting, friends, and turning 40. There was tons of food in this episode. There was tons of fighting in the beginning, and then there was the making up, becoming friends again, and then there was the turning 40, the focus of the 40th birthday party. So for this episode of Bravo-Yah or Brav-o-no, we'll go to the housewife that kept it real, and that person for this episode is Melissa. During the episode, she talks about the things that she's accomplished, and she's just very happy with where her life's at right now and feels like she's become a stronger person. And not to mention, she actually had a party that didn't involve fighting and screaming. Therefore, this episode gets the Bravo-Yah. Until next time, folks.